presence of counsel, the defendant, and the jury. Mr. Barker, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Kurt Morse.
All the way up here. Good morning. You just look over at the clerk.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? This you do under the penalty of perjury?
You may proceed. Do me a favor, just pull all, there we go. Sit all the way up in front of the microphone. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Barker.
All right, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You state your name for the record, please. Spell your last name as well.
Kurt Morse. My last name is M-O-R-S-E.
Thank you. Where do you live?
Farmington, New Mexico.
All right. Do you live near the Lamp and Light Publishing House?
That's correct.
How close do you live by that house?
We live right across the road, so it's a matter of perhaps 50 yards.
Okay. How long have you lived in that community?
For the most part of 3.5 years. I would have first moved into the area in January of 2018.
All right. Let me ask you a little bit about the Mennonite Church. You're a Mennonite, is that right?
That's correct.
We've heard some testimony about the manner of dress that the women have, so the dresses and the head covering. Is there a specific dress code for men as well?
We stress simplicity, modesty. We don't want to follow world's fashions.
All right. So a plain button-up shirt, is that a pretty common
Yes.
dress?
Mhm.
And with regards to, I guess, violence or nonviolence, what is the Mennonite Church stance on that?
Our stance is, we call it non-resistance, and our beliefs go back to the founding of our church in 1525 in Zurich, Switzerland. That is a Bible doctrine that we've held to very closely, and we find that's mentioned in the Bible a number of different times. So that is based on Bible truths.
So let me ask you more specifically, if someone were to attack you or to impose violence on you, what would your reaction be then in that situation, according to these beliefs?
According to these beliefs, we would not want to cause physical harm to anyone.
All right. So when you say non-resistance, does that mean not reacting or?
Well, okay, non-resistance is more than just not reacting in a violent way to someone that's assailing us. It is a way of life, and if it would have an impact on our business dealings, the way we react to the government. We do appreciate the governments, the lands that we live in. It would also affect of not participating in the military. That's something that we adhere to very closely.
Okay. So did you know Sasha Krause?
Yes, we knew her. I knew her. My wife knew her.
And how did you know her?
Well, when my wife and I came back to the Farmington church community in July of 2019, I came to work at Lamp and Light, and that's where Sasha was also working.
Okay. And what was your role at Lamp and Light?
My role at Lamp and Light, I worked in the print shop. That was my role there.
And we've heard some testimony about this, but Lamp and Light, that you're publishing religious texts, or how does it work?
That's correct. Our work goes around the world. Much of our work is in Spanish, so much of our work filters down to Central America, South America.
Okay. And what was Sasha's role at that publishing place?
Sasha worked upstairs. She was a very gifted girl. She had a working knowledge of Spanish and French. And I think her role primarily was in the correspondence departments. In English, I'm assuming she did some work in the English department, but also Spanish and French.
All right. We've heard that there's a section, at least, of this publishing that deals with studying the Bible and tests related to the Bible. Is that?
That's correct. And there's the various correspondence courses. Any given month, there may be thousands of tests that will come in, and someone needs to grade those tests. And that is probably something that Sasha did.
All right.
But again, I did not work in the upstairs area. My role was primarily down in the print shop.
Now, outside of work, obviously there's the Mennonite Church building, and you attended that building there as well?
Yes.
Okay. And did Sasha attend that same building?
Yes.
How many members of the Mennonite faith attended that church building?
I believe, this is just an approximation, there are roughly 100 members, perhaps a few more.
Okay. And church services are held when?
Our church services begin Sunday morning at 10 a.m.
In that community, and we've seen some photos, and we'll talk about this later as well, but there are Mennonites that live in that vicinity around the Lamp and Light, right?
That's correct.
And are there other Mennonites that live outside that community as well?
That's correct also.
Okay. And so people are traveling in to go to church on Sunday.
Yes.
Within that community, are there also non-Mennonites?
In our specific area around the Lamp and Light, Gingrich home, where the church building is, no, not real close. I think there's one family that lives very close, but generally they live like a neighborhood away.
Okay. We've heard this community being described as a compound. Is that just a word that shorthand?
That is a word, and I do not know where that originated with, and that's a common way to describe the church community, the buildings, those who live around the church building, Lamp and Light. But yeah, it's not a compound.
All right. In the traditional sense where there's no wall or fence, right?
Yes,
People are free to come into the community and leave the community.
that's correct.
Is there also, do you encourage visitors to the community as well?
We encourage people to come to visit us Sunday morning at church. That is, visitors are welcome.
Let's go back to Sasha briefly. You knew Sasha. Was she a person that adhered to these beliefs?
Very much so. She was a very steadfast Christian girl. She, like myself, she was not raised in a Mennonite home. She was there by choice, very much. We all are. But she was, we really appreciated her appreciation for biblical truths and for the Mennonite church that we were a part of.
Now, she was there on a type of assignment. Can you describe what that is?
Well, she came, and I'm not sure how long of a period of time that she would have come to Lamp and Light. She would have perhaps committed herself for a certain length of time. I do not know how long, but she would originally been from Grandview, Texas. That's where she would have lived previous to coming to Farmington.
All right. And then working at the publishing house, there was a period of time where you kind of committed to doing that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that was true also of the Gingrich home. Is that right?
Yes. I'm the administrator at the Gingrich home.
All right.
And yes, when we hire girls to come in and work for us, they commit for a certain period of time.
And the Gingrich home, we've heard, is an assisted living facility, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a time, a specific time for finishing work on a given day in the Gingrich home? Do they leave home at a specific time?
Yes, there are different shifts during the course of the day. And so otherwise, there are workers that are coming and going at specific times when the shift ends, and yes.
Is there a shift that ends in the evening hours? Can you describe what that is?
The evening shift, 8 o'clock-ish, there's a shift that would be right about that. Sometimes the shifts aren't exacting, because sometimes there is a variation. It all depends on when the work is completed for that specific shift. It could be 7:30, could be 8 o'clock.
All right. But it's going to be around that time period?
Yes.
Okay. Before we leave this topic on the community, I want to show you one exhibit. May I approach, Judge?
Yes. This is Sasha Krause.
Judge.
Well, the head covering is it's our interpretation, literal interpretation of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 1 through, I think, 15, and that speaks about the headship order, God, Christ, man, and woman. And the headship veiling signifies the submission to man, to Christ, to God. And this is more than symbolic. We believe it should be literally carried out and worn.
In regard to the head covering, that's something that's worn day and night?
Yes, during the day, and I can't verify for all our sisters in the church if they wear them at night or not. Presumably so, but during the day, yes.
Let me ask you about a specific date now. Let's go back to January 18, 2020, into the early morning hours of the 19th of January. Let's talk chronologically. Do you recall what you were doing on that Saturday? It was January 18th.
Well, at that point in time, 2020, in January, my wife and I were spending the nights at the Gingrich home. I was not the administrator of that facility yet, but we were spending the nights there as a backup in case of emergencies took place during the night, such as, let's say, if one of the residents fell and there was assistance needed. So we would have been there that evening, spent the night.
Okay. If something were to happen outside the Gingrich home, would you be a point of contact within the church?
Not necessarily. I was, there are other men, other brethren in the church in the compound for that particular night that you're referring to. I was, probably because Harley Kaufman, who was a house parent at the Lighthouse, Harley and Nestor May Kaufman, they're the house parents. He was away that weekend. Actually, I believe much of that week he was one of the teachers at a Bible school.
Okay. So and you're talking about the house where Sasha lived?
That's correct. That housing unit there is called the Lighthouse.
Okay. And it's a bluish house kind of on a hill, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so he wasn't there, his wife wasn't there, they were out of town. Did you have, is there a specific hierarchy within the church where
No.
someone would call you? Okay,
No, there isn't any, just that we received that phone call that evening because that was the first ones they thought to turn to.
all right. And let's talk about that phone call. So this was a phone call the night of 18th into the 19th. Do you recall what time that was?
It was about 2 o'clock in the morning,
Okay.
Sunday morning, 19th.
And who was the person that made the phone call?
Would have been Lucinda Hurst. She was one of the other girls that worked at Lamp and Light, but also lived at the lighthouse.
And did she call you directly or your wife?
She called my wife.
And what's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Naomi.
Okay. And then was information conveyed to you about
Yes.
the situation?
Mhm.
So
Mr. Barker, do you want to explain, or I will?
I can explain. So Kurt, just because we're taking down every word, just let's give ourselves some space in between the question and answer, just so we're not talking over each other.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. So we were talking about that phone call. Naomi got the phone call. You were given information that about the situation, right?
Yes.
And then what did you do?
Okay, about 2 o'clock, the phone call came in, and of course we were sleeping, woke us up, and my wife picked up the phone, and it was Lucinda Hurst, and she conveyed the information that we can't find Sasha. Something that was the crux of the message. She said that we don't know where she is. She went down to the church house the previous evening, and she apparently did not come back.
And the previous evening being the 18th.
That's correct. Saturday evening, the 18th.
So a few hours before you got this phone call then.
Quite a few.
Yeah, 6 hours, I guess, right?
About.
Okay. Did you go try to find out what was happening? Did you leave your house or the Gingrich home?
Yes. I told my wife to tell the girls that I would be down to the church house as soon as I could.
All right. And what time do you think you arrived at the church house?
It may have been, I'm not sure, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. I didn't really keep track, but it was fairly soon.
The Gingrich home is pretty close to the church, is that
Yes.
right? It's actually, I guess, the next building to the east from the church.
That would be correct.
When you got to the church, who was there?
Lucinda Hurst and Lily Petrie.
And you knew them to be roommates of Sasha?
Yes.
Do you recall back then what the lighting situation was like around that area, around the church building and that community?
There was very little lighting.
Has that since changed?
Yes.
Okay. Back then, around the church, what lights do you recall being on?
I think there may have been one. I really don't recall. I do remember that it was generally very dark.
And aside from Lily and Lucinda being at the church, did you notice any vehicles around the church?
Yes, there was a vehicle parked out very close to the church. I came to understand that that was Sasha's vehicle.
So you came to understand, meaning you didn't know it was her vehicle at the time?
No, again, there's a lot of people that attend the Farmington congregation.
Right. Is it fair to say you don't know everyone's vehicle?
Yes.
But you learned that was Sasha's and was parked. We've heard about an upper parking lot and a lower parking lot. Is it the upper one now?
Yes.
What did you do once you got to the church?
We searched the upper area of the church house, sanctuary area. There's a few rooms up there. Then went down to the lower level, the basement, and searched all the rooms down there.
Were you searching by turning on lights, or did you have flashlights?
Turning on lights. I had a flashlight too.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual inside the church?
No.
Everything seemed to be in order?
Yes.
And after you searched the top and bottom of the church, where did you go?
We went outside and I searched the general area around the church building. And we opened up the doors on Sasha's car and looked in that to see if there was anything of consequence.
And her car was unlocked then?
It was.
Did you see any car keys inside?
I did not.
And there was nothing inside the car that raised any alarms?
No.
Okay. After searching the car, where did you go?
From the car, we went up to the lighthouse and we searched Sasha's room and other rooms within the lighthouse. And from there, we would have gone up to what we called Sasha's trailer. It was an older trailer that was being renovated. Sasha put much time and effort into making it homey.
Okay.
She had hoped to move into that trailer in the near future.
And this trailer was, I guess, up the hill a little ways, right?
That's correct.
Going back to her room, how did it appear when you walked into the room?
It appeared like there was nothing out of order. There was nothing that would raise any questions.
There weren't any bags packed or anything like that?
No.
Were personal items left behind, things like a wallet, or do you know?
I believe so. I mean, there was nothing. I think everything was as it was left. It was nothing out of order that would cause questions.
And then the trailer, after searching that, did you discover anything that appeared out of order?
No.
What did you do after you searched those buildings?
We went to the lamp and light building, and we searched the upstairs and downstairs.
Okay. And again, same question, anything out of order?
Nothing.
At what point did you contact the police?
Okay, well, after searching the lamp and light building, I called Paul Kaufman. And Paul was and still is the general manager at Lamp and Light Publishing. So he would have been, I contacted him just to see if he had any insight, any explanations where Sasha could be, and he did not. And it was after speaking to Paul that I called 911.
All right. What time do you think the police arrived at that community?
I called 911 at approximately 3 o'clock. And so I think it was about 10 minutes.
Okay. And were you then, did you become kind of the point of contact for the police?
I think there were several of us that were, but I had some contact with the law enforcement.
Fair to say that more people were now waking up and engaged in the search for Sasha?
Not quite yet, I don't think. I think there was still a window of time there where, okay, Paul arrived on the scene fairly soon after the law enforcement did.
Okay. So into the 3 o'clock hour and getting closer to 4, people started waking up?
Yes, there was a few more of the brethren that were filtering into the church community.
In public, or may I approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
All right, what is it?
It would be like a map of the area of the church community and surrounding areas.
To admit 172.
Any objection? 172 is admitted. Permission granted.
I'm going to show this now on the screen here. This is Exhibit 172. And can you see that okay?
I can see it better on my map than on the screen.
Okay. I can zoom in at points here, but if you need to refer to the hard copy, that's fine too.
Okay.
Let me ask you just to identify a couple areas here. So there's a label here that says Farmington Mennonite Church. You see that?
Yes,
Okay. And is that where the church is located?
yes.
Let me zoom in just a little bit here. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that helps some.
Okay. So there's also a label here that says Lamp and Light Publishers, and is that where that building is located?
Yes,
Now there's a highway that kind of runs, I guess this is north-south, roughly, right?
that's correct.
What's that highway?
That is 350.
Okay. And that connects up, I assume, with other major highways in Farmington?
That would be right.
And to get to this community, let's say the church, how could someone enter this area? Can you describe those ways to do that?
There'd be several different ways where one could, coming in from either the north or the south on Route 350, or you could also come in on Route 390, which is to the north of the church community.
Okay. 390, that runs west-east?
That's correct.
Okay. So let me just, now looking at Exhibit 172 again, we have this road here that connects up. It's basically perpendicular with Highway 350, right?
Yes,
And that could take you to the church, right?
that is correct.
You could also, I think you were describing a road that would take you, connect up with 390, and is that this road here?
That's right.
And that's kind of running parallel to Highway 350, right?
That's right.
And it looks like there's a couple different roads that kind of connect from the sides as well to that same road.
Yes.
Where does this road end up, this highway here that runs parallel to the 350 highway?
That road, if you take that south, would eventually intersect with Route 64, and which is was a major highway going through the area. And if you took that road north, that would come out into Route 390.
Gotcha. Let me ask you about a couple other buildings and facilities. Along this road here, we'll call it kind of the main road here going through town, is there a storage unit, a facility there?
Yes.
Sort of thing? Okay. And where is that located on the map? I don't know if it's labeled here. Where would that be?
That is located closer to the corner from, where you have where the,
Let me stop you there, Kurt. There should be a laser pointer up there, like a pen, has a red
Okay.
button on it. Maybe you could use that.
okay, I see.
Got it?
Okay, let's see here. It'll be right about there. That's where the storage unit is. It's called the storage place. It's right in that area.
So on the corner of that road, 5569, that we said
Yes.
runs parallel to the 350 highway,
Yes.
and then that other kind of main road going into the community.
Yes, 5577.
All right. May I approach again, Judge?
Yes, Mr. Barker.
Thank you. Let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit 141. You recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Right. Is that that storage facility?
Yes.
Okay. Move to admit 141.
Any objection?
Publish.
141 is admitted.
Sorry, I jumped ahead there, Judge. May I publish?
May.
Thank you. Let's show 141 now. So this was the, again, that storage facility, at least part of it, that you were just referring to?
Yes.
Okay. And this road here that we can kind of see, a little gravelly road leading up to the stop sign, which road is that?
That is 5577.
And that's the road that'll connect up with that Highway 350.
That's right.
And if you continue up the hill, you'll get to the church.
Yes.
And then this road here that kind of runs perpendicular to that, which one's that?
That is, I'm not sure what number that is. I don't live on that road. It's 5569, is it?
Let me, it's okay. Let me go back to the 172. Let's see if we can find it on here. 5569, is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let me go back to 141. In that road, as we talked about, that can connect up to 390, and then it continues south as well.
That's correct, and it can go down to Route 64.
All right. Now, this storage facility, did it have a surveillance camera?
Yes.
Can you point out where that was?
Yes, it's right about there.
You can see it in Exhibit 141. It's just attached to that, what looks like a shed.
Yes.
This area? Okay. And were you one of the individuals that viewed some of that surveillance video, try to see if you could locate any suspicious vehicles or activity?
Yes.
All right. And that would have been for the time period of, I guess, the evening hours of 18th, right?
Yes.
You have a moment, Judge?
Me.
Sure, I'm going to show you another exhibit here in a minute. Just take 1 second to load it up. For the record, this is going to be Exhibit 171. May I approach the witness, Judge?
Me.
All right, this is Exhibit 171. I've loaded it on a laptop here. I'm just going to show you image here. Do you recognize what we're looking at?
Yes.
What is this?
That would be footage from the storage place, that surveillance camera that we would have seen mounted on the side of that shed.
And there's a date and time up here. Do you see what that says?
It says 1/18/2020, and the time is 1901.
And it's counting forward in time, right?
Yes.
And it just will tell us what it shows exactly. What does the frame show?
Right here, it's not showing anything in particular right now, but there's no vehicles coming, but it will show vehicles coming and going on Route 5577.
All right. And fair to say this camera is stationary. It's not swiveling around, right?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit 171.
Any objection? Mr. Griffin, any objection? I'm sorry. Wasn't sure if you heard me.
I guess I would ask for additional foundation. How much are we showing? What are we showing? I guess the length of the clip.
Well, it's going to be the entire day. We're not going to show the entire day, but that's what this exhibit has on it.
I'm sorry, from what, so you've already established the date, and you stated it was 1901, which, isn't that 7:01 p.m.?
That's correct. So military time, the 7:01 p.m. This particular exhibit 171 has the entire day of January 18th.
So when you're asking for, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No,
Just
go
to
ahead.
clarify, just
Go
to
ahead.
clarify further, they're 1 hour clips, and it's all on a single exhibit, 171.
So it's on that date, and then from what time, I believe what Mr. Griffin's asking for is clarification on from what time frame, besides the date, you've already established that, well, from what time frame to what time frame are you asking to publish with respect to this exhibit?
I'm not asking to publish right now, just to admit Exhibit 171.
It's true, you are just asking to admit it. But again, what time frame? From what time to what time? That's what defense counsel is asking, as I understand it.
This would be from midnight on the 18th until 11:59 p.m. on the 18th, so that 24-hour period.
Midnight on the 18th?
I guess 12:01, so a.m.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, any further foundation?
Oh, yeah. Voir dire on additional foundation.
Yes, you may.
I just have some additional questions. I'm a little fuzzy on your connection to the storage facility building. Do you own that building?
No,
Does the church own that building?
no.
You're here testifying about this surveillance camera in the video only because you looked at it once with the police?
Yes,
And did you look at 24 hours, 12 hours of full run from 12:01 a.m. through, all the way through? Did you look at all of that?
no.
Who is the owner of the building?
The owner of the building at that time was J. Glenn Miller.
Why is Mr. Miller not able to verify what this shows us and what's going on?
He passed away from COVID last year in December.
Sorry to hear that. So, again, your only connection would be that law enforcement showed you some of this film selectively.
I was present when the film was being looked at.
No further voir dire questions.
All right. Any objection to the admission of this exhibit?
I do. I don't think that a proper foundation's been laid for the entirety of what the exhibit shows.
Counsel, any response? I know you both know about speaking objections, so if we need to go sidebar, we can do that. What's your response, Mr. Parker?
Judge, I'm happy to run through each hour clip with this witness, and he can verify that it's showing the same area of the same road that we just referred to. It's a stationary camera, but he can and he has authenticated that it's what it intends to, what it purports to be. Thank you.
We do sidebar on this.
Yes. Tell you.
Are you aware of any other, at least back in those days, any other surveillance video in that community?
No,
All right, so this would have been the only one working at the time.
as far as I know.
Let me, if I could approach one more time, Judge.
You may.
See that?
Yes.
Recognize what that is?
It's like a map of the Farmington area from the church community and into the actual city of Farmington.
All right, thank you. To admit, 173.
Any objection? 173 is admitted.
May I publish?
You may.
All right. So Kurt, again, this is even a wider view of this community and more of the Farmington area, but you see this label out here to the right where it
Yes.
says Lamp and Light Publishers? Is that where that's located?
Yes.
Okay. And let me zoom in a little bit here. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. All right, so we talked about a couple highways. I just want to be clear. There's Highway 350 that runs kind of north-south, right?
Yes.
That was the one that we talked about, runs perpendicular to the entrance to the community, kind of that main road.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a Highway 390. This is going west-east.
Yes.
And you could, there's this kind of frontage road that we identified. You could take this and meet up right with 390. Is that right?
That's right.
And if you took this road, would you avoid being seen in that surveillance video?
Yes.
You would, in fact, be running behind it. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then you talked about, let me zoom back wide here. You talked about how that kind of frontage road we identified going south, that would link up with which highway?
If you took that south, that would hook up to Route 64.
Right. And that's a major highway, obviously going the east-west direction.
Yes.
And the other highway, 390, we identified up here, eventually you could connect up to the same highway if you wanted to.
Yes.
Have a moment, Judge. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Griffin.
Mr. Morse, I'm Bruce Griffin. I'm for Mr. Gooch. I interviewed with you some time ago. Do you recall, sir?
Yes.
Good to see you. Good morning. I just have a few questions for you. I want to talk about, you mentioned in your direct examination that service on Sunday usually started at 10 a.m.
That's correct.
Is there a sign, a marquee, or anything that tells the public as they enter that this is a Mennonite facility, it's a Mennonite church, and what the hours of service are?
There is one now, yes. To flush out this answer, at the time of Sasha's disappearance, there was a previous sign. It wasn't as extensive, and there was no time shown on the sign of when services would begin.
What did it say?
It said something to the nature, all welcome, something of that nature, but there was no time frame.
How is the church building itself in your community, how is that used on, say, a Saturday?
Generally not. It would be extremely seldom that the church building would be used for meetings.
I'm told that perhaps on occasion, on a Saturday, say there might be revivals or other special meetings that would be held. Is that correct?
Very seldom, perhaps once a year, maybe twice.
In your community?
Yes, that's correct. Very, very, very seldom.
Would be more frequent in other Mennonite communities. Is that fair?
Could be, but I doubt it.
I want to talk about, are you familiar generally with the vehicles that are owned by people living on the community or the compound, if you will?
Ones that live in the very near area, yes. Other than that, not as much.
Now, you say that you did recognize or did not recognize Sasha's car that day.
I did not.
Would a strange car, unfamiliar to the area, stand out at night?
No.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, being very dark, and I probably wouldn't notice it.
If somebody saw a car at night that was unfamiliar, Would that be a cause for concern?
It would be now.
No. Let me reference. I'm asking questions back at the time of some.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Perhaps not.
But perhaps so. Would you agree? Or can you speak for all members as to what their attitude would be?
I can't.
That's fair enough. Thank you. When a shift ends from the Gingrich home, how many people, would it be the same number of people coming off and going on each time? In other words, would 8 people come off and be replaced by 8 people?
No, the numbers would be much lower than that. There would only be a few, and it would be the same amount coming and going.
If we had information that perhaps 1 or 2 females may have been seen leaving the home around the 8 o'clock hour, plus or minus a few minutes, on the evening of January 18th, would that be inconsistent with what you would think of?
No.
So that would be a typical shift end with several people, could be more than that, leaving.
No, it generally would not be more than that. And again, the shift ends, it's variable, the time is.
Do people normally drive to the Gingrich home that work there?
At that time frame, there was some movement on foot.
So mostly people would walk to and fro when they got off shift.
Not all, but it was often there was walking.
You're familiar with a white hatchback car that might have been utilized by anybody in the community at that time? Back on the
I do not.
When Sasha's disappearance occurred, I'm sure that there was much investigation. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Fair to also say, sir, that the law enforcement questioned many of the individuals in the community,
Yes.
including yourself and many of the other people that lived or worked there.
Yes, I think we were all had interconnection with law enforcement. I know I did on a number of different occasions.
You felt like they were aggressively and actively investigating the case. Is that fair?
Yes, I believe so.
After Sasha's body was recovered, did that investigation come back and continue again?
Yes, I think there was a continuation.
All right, so let me ask you 2 particulars. Was there specific investigation that came back after Sasha's remains had been found that included concern about duct tape?
I don't recall.
Was there specific follow-up investigation after she was located about guns or weapons?
Could you be more specific with who were?
Determined by an autopsy that she had been shot. Was there follow-up investigation, to your knowledge, at the community about weapons that might have been responsible for that?
Are you referring to individuals that would have been suspicion with
Well, I'm
relation?
not asking about suspicion, I'm just asking, were you aware, sir, personally, of whether law enforcement came back to follow up on either the topic of duct tape or weapons?
I'm not sure that I am.
You did not personally get questioned about those?
No, I did not.
Thank you. No further. Thank you.
Mr. Barker.
I have nothing, thank you.
All right, any of the jurors have a question for this witness? Please excuse. Apparently we may. Write it out, please. Sorry? You don't have to put anything on the top. Yeah, you don't have to put anything on the top. So let me just try to clarify. So jurors asking a question. You don't have to write, remember, do not write your name. You don't have to write anything out on the top. Just write your question on the forms provided. Thank you. Council, since there's a number of questions, would you please join me sidebar? Dahlia will call for you if we need you. So I'm just going to read you these questions, sir, from the jury, just exactly word for word the way they're written. Okay. All right. Is 10 a.m. a common start time for Mennonite churches on Sundays throughout the United States?
That, probably not, no. That would fall back on the individual congregation, what works best for them.
How would someone get information for your church if they wanted to visit and they were not part of your community?
They could call one of the ministers' contact people in a church directory.
Do you generally have services in the afternoon or evening on Sundays?
Every Sunday we would have the morning services. Very seldom Sunday afternoon. Very seldom.
Mr. Morris, is the storage place surveillance camera motion activated?
No.
Or is it fair to say it is continuously recording?
I think it's fair to say that it's continuously recording.
Any other questions of this witness before he's excused from the jury? Okay, apparently we have another question. Oh, thank you. Counsel, will you approach, please? Jurors, remember to spell to the best of your ability the words you're writing out so that we don't struggle with trying to figure out and use the wrong word. We want to, if we're going to ask the question, we want to make sure we're asking the question that you want asked. How would an occasional counsel, can you approach?
Revival?
Oh, is that what you think the word is? Okay. How would an occasional revival be communicated out to community or others outside of community?
Well, as far as an occasional revival, we generally have revival meetings once a year. And as far as being communicated, it would be, I believe, generally transmitted by word of mouth, or sometimes we do have printed flyers that would be handed out different places.
All right. Jurors, any other questions for this witness before I turn it over to counsel for any potential follow-up? Okay, apparently no other questions for this witness. Mr. Barker.
No follow-up, thank you.
Mr. Griffin, may this witness be excused?
Yes.
All right, you can step down. You're excused. Thank you. All right. Counsel, will you approach? Mr. Parker, you may call your next witness.
Detective Steve Strain.
All right, while they get the next witness, I was just checking with counsel. I'm watching the clock. You may as well, I don't know, but I know it's 11:45, and we are going to stop right at noon, or maybe even, depending on if we finish with the witness, a couple minutes before that, because I have a judge's meeting I have to attend on the over the lunch hour. So just to let you know, we will be taking your lunch break soon. All right, and then the bailiff's going to assist you. Actually, no, come this way.
Do you solemnly swear under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sorry, the bailiff normally would direct you. I apologize for that. And I didn't have my mask on, so I was trying to back up. Anybody comes close to the bench. Okay, there we go. All right, Mr. Barker, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
You state your name for the record,
My name is Stephen Strang.
and Strang is spelled how?
Strang.
Where do you work?
I am a full-time certified and salaried officer. I work for the San Juan County Sheriff's Office. That is in northern New Mexico. Our office is in Aztec, New Mexico. I've been employed there since March of 2015, and I am currently assigned to the Detective Division.
How long?
You do me a favor, sir. You got to slow down, okay? Just because I got to make sure the jurors are getting what you're saying and the court reporter is getting it down. So just maybe take a deep breath and just slow down a little bit. We sure appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Barker.
Thank you. How long have you been a detective?
Approximately 2.5 years.
Okay. And is the region that you are in San Juan County, that covers Farmington as well?
That's correct.
Okay. And we've heard testimony, obviously, about the Lamp and Light community. It would encompass that as well?
That's correct.
Okay. And were you assigned as, for lack of a better word, the lead detective on this case?
Yes, I was.
And that was, I guess we should specify as to San Juan County investigation, right?
Correct.
All right. I'm going to take some things out of order real quick. We'll come back to some other subjects, but I want to approach Judge if I could. I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 171. Correct?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This camera is mounted on a building at a storage facility on County Road 5577, and it is orientated to the east. In the background to the east, you'll see County Road 350. That footage initially was collected by Detective Reach, but eventually, yes, I did collect that for the case.
And this footage, we should specify for the record, 171 is the day of January 18, 2020.
Correct.
And you've reviewed this, and or at least some of this footage, you can verify that this is the footage from that surveillance camera from that storage unit.
Yes.
All right. Move to admit 171.
Any objection? What foundation's lacking?
Not clear as to whether he seized it from the storage facility, it was by a third party, how that acquisition.
Objection sustained.
Detective, was this seized from the storage facility?
Yes, it was. That video was gathered with the assistance of Mr. David Burkholder.
All right. And David Burkholder is who?
He is associated with the Lamp and Light Publishing.
Excuse me. And it was provided to your office, or
Yes,
your
that is-
sheriff's office?
That is correct. When the video was requested, we went to the building that the camera is mounted on. The recording device is contained within that. It's a small little building. It's contained within that building. We went down there to that facility, and that evidence was gathered at that time. the video was gathered at that time.
And did you review it at that facility before seizing it?
Initially, when we tried to look at that video to see if it was working properly, to be quite honest with you, we went back to that building a couple of different times to obtain it. I believe the first time we tried to obtain it on the jump drive, it didn't download, so we went back again to retrieve it.
All right. And was it downloaded onto a jump drive and then given to your office?
Correct.
Okay. And you booked it into evidence?
Correct.
All right. Move to admit 171.
No further objection.
171's admitted.
Thank you. Judge, if we want to break here, I have further subjects, but it'll take some time.
That's fine. We'll break just a few minutes early. That way I can attend that meeting. We only have these meetings, not even every month, but we try to meet once a month, sometimes twice a month. The judges, Superior Court judges. Okay. So we're going to break just a little bit early for the lunch hour, just because we're at the point with this witness, as Mr. Barker explained, he's got some other areas to ask. So we'll go ahead and just do that. That'll be done at a later time, not right now. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please do not talk about the case with anyone. Do not let anyone talk to you about the case. Keep an open mind about the case, and please do not form any opinions about the case. If you want to take your juror notebooks with you into the jury room, you can. You could also leave them on your chairs, but they have to either be, just as a reminder, they have to either be left on your chairs during court days, trial days, or left in the jury room. They can't leave the courthouse, is what I'm trying to say. So either in the jury room or on the chairs, and the bailiff will secure them when you're not in the jury room or not in the courtroom, and then you'll always get those from the bailiff. They'll be available to you in the jury room the next morning when you come in for trial. All right. And then if you could be back in the jury rooms by 1:20, then that way, hopefully we've got everybody back, everybody ready to go, so we can bring you in, hopefully as promptly and close to 1:30 as possible for continued testimony. All right, enjoy your lunch hour. We stand in recess. Can I see that for a second? Please be seated. The record will reflect the jury's been excused for the afternoon recess. So I just want to make a record, because we weren't on the record, that both attorneys objected to juror question number 13 being asked of the witness, because the objection from counsel for both parties was that the question was asked and answered. So for the record, that's why 13 wasn't asked. All right, counsel, you want to be back about 1:15, so if something comes up and you need to put it on the record, we got a few minutes to do that. All right, okay, we stand in recess. Okay, so let's to double check. Are you? So, just-
So